Yeah.
What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 306. I'm here again. My name is Steve, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, and they are, as always, are
Ron
and John.
Always in that order. Always in that order as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine that people that listen to our podcast on a regular basis, like they just kind of go along with that every time. Like they just try to time it perfectly. You know what I mean? Like, cause sometimes you jump the gun and sometimes you hesitate. It's like you're keeping them guessing, Ronald. Like you're like, I don't know. Gotta not let them, what do you call it? Like guess or forecast what I'm going to drop in with my name. I like it.
You think
the way that people listen to the Pink Floyd album and they time it with certain movies?
I like to compare the two.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot of people, and I don't know why, but it's that there's an Ugly Kid Joe album that people like to play.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea why they chose that band, but
what is it? Is it? It's not Star Wars, is it? For Pink Floyd, somebody told me.
I think it's every movie. I mean, I've heard several, but Pink Floyd and Wizard of Oz was the first one.
Wizard of Oz. Okay, I actually saw a fan edit that had Pink Floyd mixed with it. It's really cool. I've been getting into fan edits a lot. Like, especially over the pandemic, people are just sitting at home making cool edits.
They got time to do it.
They have
and,
so much time.
Apparently Topher Grace has a lot of time to do it because he does a lot of them. It's like his thing.
What?
Yeah, he's done like The Hobbit. He did The Hobbit, right? And then
no, I didn't know that, man.
He's done another one.
The Phantom Menace, or maybe the prequels
Menace.
Or something. But he was famous for doing sort of
maybe the prequels,
like a story edit that fixed the quote unquote problems of the prequels.
Right.
I didn't know that, man.
Yeah, they're really, really pretty interesting.
Wow.
I was gonna say, fun story or fun fact rather. Ugly Kid Joe was an opening band of the first concert I ever went to.
Oh, really? What was the
first real concert? Like Def Leppard.
Ah, perfect.
Tells you everything you need to know about me right there.
Yeah, right.
I
gotta know, which band were you there for though? Were you there for Ugly Kid Joe, or were you there for Def Leppard? Like, who were you more invested in?
It's funny. I was definitely there for Def Leppard, like, because we had the shirts. Like I still am. I really like Def Leppard. But it was a bonus though, because I feel like at a special time in that early part of the 90s, like Ugly Kid Joe had that one massive hit, like the Hate Everything About You.
It was during the 20 minutes that they were famous.
Yeah, they had that huge like Hate Everything About You or whatever I can't remember the real name of it, but they had that one big smash. But that was first concert, Merriweather Post Pavilion here in Baltimore or Columbia. Oh boy, good times.
Good times.
History.
Memory lane.
So we're gonna do it a little differently on this week's episode. We haven't done a Marvel Schmarvel in a few weeks. Multiple reasons, just like we got vacations going on. We just got people falling behind, myself included. Just catching up, and I think we're on the same page now. But because of the way the timing all works out, and especially with Black Widow coming out this week and us being unable to see it before it released, we're going to kind of include a little bit of a recap, catch up of Loki on this episode and get back to Marvel Schmarvel next week, when Loki wraps its season up, and we'll have seen Black Widow by then. So we'll talk about all that next week. But in the spirit of a catch-up episode, which is what this one is, we're going to take the opportunity to kind of get caught up a little bit and talk a little Loki. I guess it's episodes 3, 4, 5 is kind of where we're at in terms of kind of getting up to speed. So I guess before we go into these 3 episodes, where we left off, I feel like, and where I've followed you, Ronald, on your social media platforms, when I last saw you were on the negatives end of the spectrum the pod crew here.
Yeah.
And I think John and I were on the positive. I don't know how far along it.
Yeah.
But I've seen some posts, some Facebook posts, tweets, Instagram, whatever you're doing. I know I've seen them. And I'm going to take your advice. I'm not going to try to convince you to like the show or that it's a good show. But I want you to talk about where you were
Sure.
I guess the last time Marvel Schmarvel stopped, and I guess where we're at now, at least at the end of episode 5, Loki. Where are you with this show?
Okay.
At the end of episode 2, by the way, Ronald, you had just talked to us about how you thought that episode 2 took about twice as long as it needed to give us what it gave us. And then we went into episode 3 and we managed to talk before that. But yeah, we haven't talked since then. So take us on your 3, 4, 5 journey with Loki.
Okay.
Yeah, where are we at?
Yeah, so basically I started off with a bad taste in my mouth, man. One of my issues was that I just needed a story that felt like, okay, so I guess when I start from the beginning, some of my love for Loki's kind of come off the heels of when the movie started to get a little more popular, I guess Loki and Avengers, and then Loki and Ragnarok, and these versions of him that have kind of gone through some people with some comedic chops. So I had expectations for this. Not that I wanted this thing to be exactly like that, but I wanted a story to be told. I think that's what I've been wanting. And I still don't feel like I've had a story told yet. But the 5th one really did feel like the closest thing that I was going to get to that feeling of liking the show. I still don't really like it at all. I don't think it has anything to do with, like, I like Loki. Loki's like one of my favorite, I'll say second tier characters. I mean, let's say if there's like the main Avengers, Loki is right there. And I think one of the things that makes him like sly and cool and funny, and he is coming across in that way in the show. But I feel like the story as a whole, I haven't had anybody being able to tell. I've been watching a lot of these summaries, and they still don't seem to be able to tell me what sounds like a something heading towards a complete story as this ends. And I don't want it to necessarily tell an epic. Just tell me a complete story, and it still doesn't feel like I'm gonna get that. It doesn't feel like I don't feel like that about this show. It feels like it missed me on a lot of levels still. But the 5th one was so good. But that was it for me. So I'm done with it.
And so just
you're done. You're not gonna watch the next one.
I'm definitely gonna watch the next one, but
so where you leave on 5, like you're saying that was a better episode, but you still don't feel you feel the same pretty much about the show as a whole. But what about the 5th episode worked more for you?
Okay, so I had kind of in the past heard about Loki having multiple versions of himself, right? Something about seeing the characters together and feeling like this is a weird thing to think about. Like, this is not quite as literal as it's happened in this story, but I think that in our lives, we're like 50 people. Like, I feel like at some point we were like that tough kid that didn't take any shit. We were that little crocodile that was jumping on people. We were that big guy we've all felt like that. And I didn't feel up until that point the emotional pull of how that felt. Like, something about him being in a space with them, and all of them were super charismatic, super funny. I really felt connected to that. I really felt like we all have kind of felt like we're sitting in a room with 50 Steves, 50 Johns, 50 Ronalds, and like,
right.
What have we been doing? And how do we connect to each other?
Yeah,
that's something so poetic about that I've never seen in anything besides like Multiplicity, maybe. Like I'd never seen it. They're doing something with this episode that feels like whoever was doing the other episodes didn't do this episode. Almost like, how Marvel kind of will rotate directors or stuff like that. This feels like this cool pocket of an episode that shocked the shit out of me, to be honest with you, man. I loved it. It affected me. I kind of felt weepy at the end, and I don't know why I felt so weepy.
I think it's maybe the whole team the whole time, isn't it? Or at least from a directing standpoint. I think it's the whole team.
The same creative group for every episode.
I do think they knew they were ramping it up for this episode, though. I mean, I think like a lot of TV seasons do that. I think even Tom Hiddleston was saying episodes 4 and 5 are when it really kind of, starts firing on all cylinders. I think every show almost now, it's a cliche that the penultimate episode of whatever season you're looking at is the one where everything is almost like at its biggest.
Yeah.
I think I went on a similar trajectory as you, though, Ronald, in the sense that going into episode 3, I was really digging on the general vibe of the show, but I was ready. I was like, now it needs to take off because they've set up this idea. And the only thing I really cared about was the friendship between Mobius and Loki. But I thought the first 2 episodes did a good job of establishing that. And it gave me enough of those 2 actors together. And that's why I didn't mind them slowing it down like it bothered you in episode 2, because I think I was going, well, if this story is going to take off in this direction, well, we're not going to get a lot of Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston sparring. I'm glad they gave us as much of that as they did, But I kind of was ready for something. And then episode 3 was actually when my interest flagged the most watching it. It wasn't like I wasn't enjoying it, and I was still kind of invested in seeing where it went. But episode 3 felt to me like the one where I wasn't ready for that much kind of sitting and chatting with Sylvie, the new character at that point, the new Loki, the female variant of Loki, or a character in her own right, but presented to us as sort of a female Loki at first. And I think I was thinking like, they haven't bought me into this character yet. And it wasn't until episode 5 where she actually has a kind of nice conversation with Loki. At that moment, I realized, I guess I care about her now too. Like they had built her up to the point where I saw the humor and the pathos in that character. But I thought that episode 4 did a lot to get me back into the kind of twists and turns of the story. But 5 is maybe one of the first episodes of any of these Marvel shows that you could say approaches like, this is a great episode of television, in my opinion. I mean, I was thinking back on all of them. They've all had glimmers. They've all had episodes, Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm not knocking the other shows. I'm not one of those people who puts Loki so far ahead of the other shows. I think they've all had these moments of like excitement that we've all had about watching them and going, what is this? There's like a mystery element to WandaVision and to Loki. And then with, up through U.S. agent murdering someone in the streets in Falcon and Winter Soldier, that really felt like it was going somewhere too. But then in the later episodes, you realize that was really the big payoff of the whole season. It was that moment. It never quite matched that. I think they've all had those moments. This to me was the moment with this show where, like you said, Ronald, it tied it all together. This idea that like, they've never hidden from us that Loki is not the smoothest operator. Like even when he's at his most successful, when you finally catch him, like in the first Avengers movie, when they finally catch him, the Hulk is able to just bang him around. He's not really a threat once his scheme is up, and he can't resist scheming. He can't resist stabbing people in the back. He can't resist trying to put one more spin on a lie. And so he's kind of a weasel, and he kind of likes it. And so of course, when he meets versions of himself, he would be sort of like, it's like a wake up moment for him to see what he is. And I thought those scenes were great. I thought Richard E. Grant, I mean, if you want to look at like the way he got used in Star Wars versus the way he got used in the MCU, this is a fucking great character turn by Richard E. Grant in one episode, versus having him as an Imperial in the last Star Wars movie and really not making an impression beyond just of an accent. No, Alligator Loki was great. I love the moment. I love Owen Wilson and classic Loki, Richard E. Grant's character, talking about the nature of like the game within the game. And if the alligator is lying about being Loki, there's no evidence the alligator's actually even saying that it's Loki, but they actually say like, if this alligator's lying about being Loki, then that makes him even more likely to be a Loki. I mean, I love that kind of logic. Those characters, actors having fun with each other. To me, that felt like a real payoff of something that is maybe what you're not getting from the show. But for me, Ronald, that was the moment that I was like, this would almost work as a movie, like as a Loki movie. You could almost do what they're doing to build up to these moments and have the highs that they've had. But I do like some of the slow moments. And I do think there's a great moment where Owen Wilson's character shows back up that felt like, okay, if I was in a packed theater, that would have been a big moment. You're kind of hoping it's him, and then it's him. I thought all of that was really well handled. So Steve, what do you think? How are you feeling at the end of episode 5?
I'm loving it. I mean, honestly, like I did feel it slowed a little bit in episode 3, kind of in line with what you guys have been saying, but I kind of almost felt like that was like almost like a requirement to kind of give us the switch with Sylvie, and also kind of go along with him to understand like what her role in all this was, and like just really kind of how things look. This whole idea of a facade and like, playing a game and all this stuff. Like, I think it just kind of I think it plays into the idea of what the TVA is doing to anybody that'll listen, basically by force, that like, this is what's happening, this is who you are. And like the idea of hearing something else and something that challenges that, I think that behind the curtain moment worked really well when like, you start to realize what she knows and like what her role is and why she's maybe doing what she's doing. So, but once it gets to 4 and 5, those two really do feel like where it clicks, and it really does feel like, to me, even where it could possibly go with only one episode left, I have an idea of it, but like it does feel like the most complete, to me, the most complete series so far that we've had. Like wherever it ends up, it does feel like the one that is most rooted in the MCU as we know it. Even though Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision like have more like visible and tangible ties to what we've already seen, this one really does feel like what he's carrying with him, what we've seen through like, him seeing his death and the Thanos scene and all that stuff. It's kind of pulling along what we know and what we've been through, and like it feels like a projection into like what's going to come in the MCU more than the other two have, to me. And I agree with what you said, John. I was going to say the same thing about episode 5, which is that it is just a blanket great episode of TV. Like I feel like it's one of the best looking episodes of TV. I feel like probably, I mean, especially in the genre that there may be, you know what I mean? I feel like it's the one of all these so far that has even, rivaled the quality of what some of the MCU movies have been able to put on the screen. And, the final 15 minutes of the episode, like, is just works 100%. Like the Richard E. Grant turn, Mobius's, reappearance, like you mentioned, Loki and Sylvie working together in those final moments. Like there's a lot of just like real emotional scenes that really hit. And like, I feel like I had two specific like goosebump moments in the final parts of this episode. And not to mention the score of this series is amazing.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
When we get the orchestral version of the opening theme in this episode, like it's been kind of synthesizer-y
when it's panning
retro,
down,
but when it's like when you hear like the big version of it, that was I had to like comment to my family like it's the theme. It's the theme,
Look, I have my issues with the show, but that's just like you can't argue that. Like this was an incredible episode. Like
right. You would even say like, as a bubble, this is a bottle episode for you that was like I told
you how I felt about the show. And this to me was almost a perfect episode. It tied everything in a cool way. And you're right. Man, it almost felt like you could feel that big cloud coming towards you. Like it was the menacing noises and the sounds and seeing it attack it was too much, man. It was great. I was ready. I'm like, what the hell is next?
There's so much to really enjoy in the episode. And when you compare it to the other episodes, and even I think your criticism is probably right and fair, with a couple of them where it kind of felt like it was taking a lot of time to do something that didn't need the time. Mm-hmm. You'd almost say like too much happens in this episode, but it didn't feel that way to me.
Right.
Like the idea things that had been set up.
Right. Exactly. And you get to see more of these Loki variants, and like, you see that teaser image finally that like was all over, the internet when they started releasing stills from the show, of Loki, like with his band of people, are like, you see what that is and see how sort of insignificant it is. And
I love that version of Loki though, just the full smarmy sleazeball version. Tom Hiddleston is having so much fun, but I also love that it's not all Tom Hiddleston. That's a brilliant thing they did, was to say no, we're not just going to stick, because he could handle the different makeup and do great, but having it be, and also the way Richard E. Grant's character ties into the MCU mythos, answers like a what if kind of question. Of like what would happen if Loki had tricked his way out of his death that we saw. But I also like the way that this show presented us at first with a Loki whose redemption arc from the later films had been reversed, or at least we were taking him back to a time before he'd gone on that redemption arc. And they've showed us how Loki kind of ends up on a weird redemption arc anyway. I mean, I don't know. I don't need villains to become heroes, but he's always been one of those villains who there's a sympathetic nature to the sort of like the son that the number 2 son or whatever, the one who's
sure.
passed over for things, and whatever you want to make of that. Loki seems pretty evil and deserving of like his reputation, but there is something fun about getting into that character and really saying like, well, what does make this guy tick? I'm not that interested in that question of what makes Loki. Like coming into the show, I didn't really care that much about that, and I really think it was in the episode 4 or 5 when you got into the real story that I started going, okay, I actually now feel the way this show is, beyond just the elements that came early that you talk about, Steve, that were so effective, of him watching the scenes from the movies we've seen of what happened to him later. And if people don't know what we're talking about, I'm sure the show sounds confusing as all hell. But Steve, you were talking about something. I think that connection to the MCU, I think it's also, though, this is the first show they've had where I thought, okay, there's a status quo that I can imagine at the end of the next episode that they could get to. That would be like a setup for another season, in a way that the other shows haven't quite been exactly, where it's like, I could see this going forward with this new understanding of Loki as this guy who understands this, sitting outside time and going around and doing stuff. That sounds like a fun place to take the character. But I also think what makes it really interesting is how right now it could go on for seasons and be completely separate from the MCU movies. It exists in this weird other world that we don't even know when. We don't even know if this is all hundreds or thousands of years in the future or something like that. We don't know any of that yet. We don't know what I mean? We don't know. So there is something kind of fun about both how connected this is that gives it weight, but also it's like how separate it is in terms of where it could go next. Now, there are connections in this show to characters that people expect to see popping up in the upcoming Marvel movies, and there's a lot of talk about a certain character popping up as the sort of man behind the curtain that we surely will meet in the next episode, or the being behind the curtain that is like behind all this. Well, I have that was a question I wanted to talk about with you guys. I'm very interested in, like, there seems to be at this point, for it to really be dramatically satisfying, it would have to be something set up on the show. It couldn't be something that was just there to appeal to comic book fans and people who know rumors and stuff. You can't just say, oh, it's actually Zondar, and show some character. I don't think that feels like this show. It has to be connected to this show. So I feel like, to me, there's a high probability that it's a Loki variant behind all of this. Rather than, because I don't know that seeing, like, the villain from the next Ant-Man movie or whatever the rumors are, like, I don't know that sounds like a satisfying end to this story. It feels more cohesive to say that would answer this other question of, like, well, what's the worst version of this guy? But I don't know. I didn't know what you guys thought. Like, who do you expect to see in the castle? That kind of seems like that's the big question going into next week.
So Google's character, supposedly in a role, this character,
she's connected to the villain I keep hinting at.
Yes,
but I don't know. Should we just say his name?
Yeah, sure.
Kang the Conqueror. He's the rumored. He's the villain of the next Ant-Man movie, and he's very connected to time shenanigans. And Ravonna Renslayer is like his lover, or sometimes lover, or one-time lover in the comics. So, like, her character could easily be a front for him, or someone who's looking for him. That's what I was thinking. Or something. And Jonathan Majors has been cast, and we know he's out there, and they've promised big cameos. So it could happen. But I'm just wondering, like, how satisfying would that be to end this season by saying, oh gosh, look, it's a new character that we've never heard anything about. Does that feel like what the show is headed towards? Or does it feel like it's going more like Journey of the Soul? It's going to be all about Loki versus Loki, or Loki meeting Loki,
Is it going to be one of those things like I've been there all along? Like, he's just going to be in the office, like slightly to the side of someone else, and you just
right. He's a hiding.
I wouldn't mind that. I actually wouldn't mind that at all. But
is it going to be a Mobius variant? Like, what's it going to? I just feel like it has to be something that we care about from this show. But they might do that. They've resisted that with all of these shows. They've resisted bringing in that crazy person in the last episode. That would be the fan casting fantasy cameo. But I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts about that, or had Steve, you're the least comic booky of us. Had you given any thought to, like, who it could be or what that would represent?
Not really. I mean, I've seen the rumors like you're talking about, some other names that have come up in a couple articles that I've read, and also the idea of another Loki variant. But I personally would prefer it to be a different character than another Loki variant, because I kind of feel like at this point, to me at least, that idea feels a little exercised. Like, I feel like I don't know that I want to see more, and even so the biggest maybe next villain or whatever this, I don't know. I just like the idea like of these, the times and the multiverses, or like these, you know, branches off. Like there's just a lot of things that kind of funnel into the idea of it being, you know, the Kang of it all. And you know, I've read a bit to like learn more about that character, and it does seem like that feels like a pretty logical and smart way to end a show that, you know, is really coming out right when, you know, the next phase of the MCU movies is kind of getting going. And like we've said before, like Marvel is like, it's like full throttle from here out. Like, you know, we've been in a bit of a dry spell because of COVID, and things are kind of bottlenecked a little bit. So I think it would be a pretty good flex to end this show like with a big reveal or a big kind of setup, you know, when we start to get into these other movies.
I guess I just don't want to see this show end in a way that sets up the future. I want it to end like I want it to be its own story, maybe like a post-credit scene where we see that Kang is behind it or something. But to me, it feels like it will be not as interesting if we're hearing all about a new character and learning, like if we're getting all the exposition and fighting about, you know, all that with a new character in 1 week. But if, you know, if it's a great hour that feels as cinematic as this last week, maybe they can do enough that it won't feel kind of random and sudden. Because I just don't know that they could say it's Jesus Christ, and I just don't think it would have dramatic impact right now because they haven't set up a story about that. You know what I mean?
Right. I get that.
I don't, but I don't feel like I need that though. Like I feel like I don't need the setup for like what they're trying to understand. You know, like the whole thing was like, you know, in episode 4 when you realize that these like overseers were just like puppets, literally. Like I feel like from that point on, it's like we're just learning as these characters are. Like, you know, I just feel like I don't know that I need the setup going into the final episode to introduce like a big villain. You know what I mean? I feel like, especially if there's going to be more seasons of Loki, even if there's not, you know, just kind of like you said before, knowing that character, if it is him, in fact, you know, has a big role in the Ant-Man movie, and I'm sure there's going to be, you know, other pieces that are, you know, kind of laced through credit sequences and other movies or whatever. But I don't know. I kind of I guess feel like the opposite. I kind of feel like I would like a mix up in the final episode to see something that shakes it up a little bit and is not something that I've been kind of fed information about over the past 4 or 5 episodes. But I mean, either way, I think they got to a point right now. I kind of went into episode 5 thinking that there was 2 more episodes and was, you know, quickly told by a friend like, oh, that's only 1. So I was like, oh, that's a little worrisome. But I don't know. They did a lot. They did a lot in this episode. You know what I mean? Like they accomplished so much in this episode. Like we fully understand what the Void is, its purpose, how it functions. You know, the Alliance of it all. Like they literally have all these characters like dropping pieces and parcels that make so much sense in 50 minutes. So I mean, now that they're through this thing and we're about to see what they're, you know, going to find, like I feel like they could probably accomplish it in the next 50 to 60, but we'll see. I mean,
I guess I just worry about that. If people criticize that thing that the Marvel things only set up, they exist to set up the next thing, and that something could be a complete story. And to me, it's like if you were watching one movie and the villain a brand new character showed up in the last 15 minutes to reveal, to me, that just doesn't feel like it can be as dramatically satisfying as something that's tied to what they've done before. And they haven't done a lot of like direct setting up of Kang, but there are clues that, I mean, again, the Ravonna Renslayer, there's so many things that seem like they're leading up to that. So yeah, like I said, if it's as good as episode 5, you know, it can be like a packed hour. I don't know if it'll feel like it's the end of a story if they're setting up a villain who we know he can't beat, though, because that villain has to be intact for a future story. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that criticism's a little like we're talking about like the MCU, like they're not hiding the fact that everything sets up everything. So, you know, I just feel like, you know, worrying that its sole purpose is just to set something up for the next thing is fair, but I mean, we've already talked a lot about, you know, this show and like what we've been at, what value has been added beyond just setting up whatever the next thing is going to be, like whether it was what happened in WandaVision, that journey she went on. Like there's so much character development in these series that we've never gotten from these characters in the movie. So if the purpose of them is to at least in the minimum to like develop the characters, and if it sets up the next thing, I mean, personally, I'm just like, that's a win to me, because I'm okay with it setting up stuff because I want to see how it continues. And I think Marvel is in no way hiding that or shying away from that. I mean, they come out and say multiple times, like, you got to watch these shows to understand the MCU now. So that's like, they've already tipped the hat. Like, that's what's up. Like, you got to know what's going on in these shows to understand what happens in, I don't know, with the next one, Spider-Man, I guess, you know, well, Eternals. I think Eternals is before Spider-Man, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm excited to see the finale, and I hope maybe by the time that airs, maybe Ronald will come around a little bit. I'm not going to do the convincing. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let the show talk for itself, Ronald.
I think the reason this show works is that we don't typically try to convince each other of anything on this show.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
We sort of state our case.
That's true.
Bob Rose says we just pass the talking stick around on this show. You know? But no, I think the fact that there's one episode left, it is hard to imagine like whatever pace they're going at, like where that's going to end up. But after the pace of episode 5, it does seem like maybe they've established that they can get through enough story that when it ends, it'll be, I guess we'll know at the end, are they directly setting up another season, or are they trying to pretend this is the end of a story? Because they've kind of teased that they would do a second season. They haven't confirmed it with any of the shows. They've only really said that WandaVision was set up to be a one and done deal. They kind of hinted, and then they announced Captain America 4. So, I mean, you know, this might be the first one that actually is intended to keep going. So that's another reason why it doesn't have to resolve everything in one episode, if that's true.
Do you guys want them to keep going?
For Loki, or just in general?
Well, I guess even Captain America and the Winter Soldier now.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it. The thing is, something that Kevin Feige is presenting to us isn't as it seems, and I can't figure out what it is. I can't figure out if the TV shows are just a one-run thing and that's it.
I think they are.
It's starting to feel like that, man. It didn't feel like that before, but as it goes on, I'm like, this isn't going to last forever. This isn't going to be like a thing where it's always going to be TV show and movie going hand in hand. But it's fun while it's lasting, man. It is really.
I think the shows are going to go on for a long time. I think it's just not necessarily going to be season 2, season 3 of a lot of these shows, because they've already announced.
That's what I mean.
4 or 5 more shows. So I think they're going to keep them going. But yeah, will it be? You know, will they just juggle them? You know, there'll be different permutations, things that happen in the movies or what. But you know, I'm kind of watching this show hoping that Loki. Like, I'm glad they've kept Thor out of Loki, and they can keep Loki out of Thor for a while. You know, they can like split those things off. So if Loki does continue as a show, that's kind of where Loki the character lives now. You know what I mean? Is in that form of storytelling. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them, if they are especially teasing all this Ant-Man stuff, to see Loki popping up in that, or whatever place they like to do that. Now they have this cast of characters they can throw in. So yeah, I don't know. They are sort of cagey about what they really intend to do. But a few of the shows do sound more like shows that could be ongoing series, like the She-Hulk show in particular is being constructed in a way that sounds very much like they're going for a sort of case of the week kind of thing, which sounds more, renewable. So so we'll see. Man. But yeah, it's true. They haven't really. It doesn't seem like we're gonna. I just wonder, are we going to get 3 or 4 series a year going forward, like to connect every movie? Because it seems like they announced the date for, like, today they released a trailer and put out the date for What If, the animated series that's coming in August. And that's like the next big MCU show. It's almost like, okay, that's very targeted with letting you know around the time that Loki's wrapping up and that Black Widow is out, like, what's your next weekly dose? And then that's going to lead you into Shang-Chi, I guess, and then maybe after that, Hawkeye is being rumored for a fall release right now. So that show could get you into a turn. I'm just saying, like, they have this way right now of keeping you on the drip. So we'll see how long that lasts, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Geniuses. God damn it.
Very smart.
Oh, Feige. All right. So let's move off of Marvel.
Yes. Bye, Marvel.
Yeah, bye. So yeah, there's a couple movies we're going to mention this week. I don't know. Have all three of us seen any of the ones that we talked about prior
I've seen
to
Fear Street.
recording? Okay. Did you see Werewolves?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've all
John?
three seen those two. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. So I guess, John, do you want to talk about the one that you saw first before we get into, because since we could all talk about the other two collectively?
Summer of Love?
Yeah.
Summer of Soul?
Summer of Soul? Yeah.
The opposite of the Summer of Love. I mean,
Summer
that's kind of what the documentary is sort of doing. It's giving you this sort of alternate music story from the summer of '69 that isn't Woodstock. You know, we've heard about Woodstock. We've heard about the Summer of Love. This is the Summer of Soul. This is a documentary that is directed by, I think one of those guys that everybody likes. Am I right about this? Questlove? Is he just one of those guys? But Amir Questlove Thompson. It is about the 1969 Harlem Cultural Festival, which was this amazing music festival that raged over different weekends through July, I believe, of 1969, and just had amazing names. I guess I'm tempted to rattle some off, but I also think watching the documentary, part of the fun is like seeing who all was there and seeing what they did. But the movie opens with Stevie Wonder in 1969 at the exact point where he's kind of like, he's going from like child prodigy Stevie Wonder to like soul mastermind genius Stevie Wonder. And you see sort of almost, it's like an onstage transformation, but seeing the way he kind of captures the crowd in those early moments. But no, I mean, the premise behind this documentary is that they shot the shit out of it. I mean, it's well shot, it's well recorded, and the footage just sat there for 50 years or however long.
Oh,
and I guess this is the first time someone has taken it and brought it out. And they do get a little bit into that in the doc. They get into like the cultural insignificant, how important this was for the people that were there. And you have a lot of attendees saying that this was the first time they looked around and saw like a sea of black and brown people, happy and joyous, that like growing up in Harlem or whatever, you knew there was a thriving scene, but it was the first time people saw this kind of like en masse positive experience. So I don't know, there's a lot of that makes it moving. And they talk a little bit about how one of the days of the festival coincided with the moon landing, and there's like there's all this footage of white people talking about how significant the moon landing is, and intercut with people at the festival saying there's starving people everywhere. Why are we spending money on this moon thing? So I mean, it's interesting. They do get the social critique in there. It is very, very wise and sly in that way, and very impactful, and does have a few real gut punches, but most of it is about the joy of the music. And if you're a creative person, this movie will, I think, emotionally affect you, because I mean, Gladys Knight and the Pips. I already mentioned Stevie Wonder, Sly and the Family Stone. I mean, it's like people that are at the top of creative expression forever. Nina Simone. Okay, I've rattled off too many people. I don't want to spoil this movie, but I mean, it's got like new performance footage from those people mixed in with people talking, mixed in with some historical context. It's made with a lot of care. And the only thing I would say, it's the similar thing I would say about that Sparks documentary that came out recently, where when you're being that complete and you're kind of going into like a list of things at some point, there is a little bit of fatigue that sets in a 2-hour documentary or 2-hour plus documentary, as the Sparks documentary was, where you go, oh, I kind of understand the rhythm of this, and I know that they've got to get me through the next 10 years or the next whatever. And in this, it's like, I know they're going to get me through the next 2 or 3 acts, and we're going to spend kind of equal time on all the acts. So it does have like a rhythm to it that might lull you in or out. I don't know, maybe people would watch it in one sitting. I was pretty enraptured by it, but I also did kind of, I guess I'll admit this, I got up and moved around a little. It's that kind of thing. The music is it's incredible music. I mean, it really is. Like, if you make art, this is art. This is like people at a moment when it was like such an explosion of the reasons behind the music and the context of the music and the intended audience for the music. It was all coming together at this festival, and this documentary really captures just all the humanity on display. And it there's little to no ugliness, which is, for a documentary about a gathering of Black people in 1969, that's nice to have that, to have like there's it's not connected directly to any great tragedy. So in that sense, I mean,
wow.
I think you've probably seen a lot of people talking about just the similar things. This is kind of a life affirming thing. And I will say one more time, great music. I'm sure there'll be a soundtrack album or something. I'm sure this is going to be heavily like brought out and processed now. It's a little bit like there's all these little pieces of history that we should have been talking about all this time that we're discovering now. And this is another one. But it's like the nice version of something from history that we should have been talking about for 50 years.
Oh man. So it's funny because Questlove has like an encyclopedic sort of memory of music, and only he would know about this footage and would want to do something with it. You know, it's interesting because I was a big fan. He had a kind of short-lived podcast that's kind of still around that he does from time to time, and it's like talking to Tarantino about movies. It's like he sees a corner of a factoid, and he knows under that is a random fact that leads to another fact that leads to another fact. So I cannot wait to see this movie. I'm glad you liked it so much. It makes me happy because I trust your opinion on music stuff. So you know, you telling me how you felt and even getting up and dancing.
Well, you got a good sound system. You've said before you've got a pretty good sound system. I really feel like this movie might be great. I don't know. I'm sure that Questlove tried to, you know, make sure that part of it is sound.
Oh man.
But it sounded good on my just, you know, my vanilla speakers here. So I'm sure.
Okay. That's exciting, man.
And that's in theaters and Hulu, right?
Right. I saw it on Hulu, but I know a couple of people that have seen it locally, and I mean, shit, there's a lot of movies right now in theaters that I'm like, okay, I'm getting the cinematic, well, you know, movies that seem like they might be great. That movie Zola is one that I really want to see.
I want to see that so bad, man.
I like Janixa Bravo. She's a great director. She made that movie Lemon, I think was the name of it, with Brett Gelman. Insane movie.
Are they still married?
No, they're not together, but I read some recent interview with him because he's gotten kind of into fashion, and they were interviewing him for GQ about his style, and he was saying that she kind of at one point when they were dating said to him, "I'm having sex with you, so you can't wear those pants anymore," and like totally changed his sense of style. But like he said that he still checks out. He'll still send a picture of his outfit to her, even though they're divorced. She still is his like fashion advisor. But he said some pretty. You know, he's an interesting weird guy. We don't need to get on a Brett Gelman tangent.
He's I like him a lot.
Odd guy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So see Summer of Soul. Okay.
I would say so.
I would
say so. See Summer of Soul.
What's next? You want to talk about Fear Street?
Ooh, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would say so. Fear Street, 1994, and we're going to talk about Werewolves Within, both movies that were available on like digital platforms this past Friday. Werewolves Within, I think, is also still in theaters.
Yeah.
But I think in general, though, I just want to say like good weekend for like horror movies.
What a weekend!
First
off,
yeah, very, very excited going Friday through Sunday watching two horror movies that, as we'll discuss, I kind of loved. But let's start with Fear Street. Yeah, I know I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast, and we've talked about it briefly. But this is Netflix's kind of new approach to this kind of idea of having this 3-part film series, all directed by the same filmmaker, and all kind of based on, inspired by the Fear Street book series from R.L. Stine from the 90s. Very rated R, very gory, very much earning an R rating, which I think just off the jump, I like that immediately about it, that it's not kind of like, you know, the Goosebumps movies, you know, like that's definitely more kids skewed. And even remember reading these books growing up, like, you know, they definitely were a lot more intense and a little more for mature, you know, audience, or teenagers at least at the time. So it was really reassuring me personally to even see that before watching it, that it was rated R for everything that it is rated R for, because it is really just kind of, it sits nicely. And I think the other two series that are going to be coming out over the next 2 weeks, Friday on Netflix and over the next 2 weeks, they're all rated R, and it kind of settles nicely and just into just like a nice, this one specifically, the slasher, you know, genre of horror, a nice R rating can earn you. But yeah, Lee Janiak is the director of the 3 movies that are going to be coming out over the next 3 weeks, and most people probably know her from the Honeymoon film with Rose Leslie from Game of Thrones. Okay. Which I thought was okay. I didn't love that movie, but I'll just say I really liked Fear Street 1994. So the first installment kind of lays the groundwork for this town of Shadyside, and you know, a little bit of its history, and like this idea of what is going to tie 3 separate movies together that take place at different periods in time, going further and further back into history of this town. But you know, as a movie of its own, I just kind of really enjoyed, again, you know, playing into the R rating, kind of playing into a lot of the genre tropes of slasher movies, kind of like Scream did. And you know, Scream as its own thing, and you know how I feel about Scream, and you know, even being excited for a new Scream movie coming out next year, it just felt really good to see like a fun slasher flick that is also, you know, set in the 90s, which is, you know, my decade, and of all things that I've loved growing up. But I just think they did a really great job, like kind of just throwing some characters out there, some that only are going to be around for one movie. And really, most of them are only going to be around for one movie. Some characters may, I think, pop up, obviously, in the film that comes up this Friday, which takes place with 78 or 76, Fear Street, 1978. But yeah, I don't know. They just did a really good job of like kind of throwing some kids out there, being very like kind of representative, but from 94, you know, kind of being like kind of, you know, challenging in some ways to the genre, and kind of doing things a little differently than a lot of films in the genre have done in the years past, or even in recent years, you know, trying to do different things, and kind of make it feel a little different. There's obviously, I don't think any real heavy tie-ins to the books, little things here and there, and like nods and winks and whatever. But as its own thing, I just thought it was great, actually. I've watched it again since watching it on Friday night, just to kind of get ready for the one that comes out tomorrow. But yeah, man, I just thought it was great. I love just the idea of how fast paced it is. There's not really a lot of time spent spinning wheels in this movie, and you kind of just jump right into the idea of what's going on in this movie. There's not really a huge mystery yet to be solved as a standalone movie. Like, we know what's happening probably within 30, 40 minutes. So I really thought that was a really fun take on a slasher pick. But I'm really excited to see kind of what they do with the next two, and hopefully it continues to be as good as this one was for me, at least. What did you guys think?
So Aaron, I didn't know this, but Aaron read a lot of the Fear Street books. And as we're watching it, she's like, I remember that shitty side instead of shady side. She remembered a lot of that stuff. And I fucking love this movie. I don't know what it was, why it hit me the way that it did. I think some of it was like, sometimes I feel like when horror films are being presented to me, it comes with too much baggage. It comes with too much like, oh, I've seen this thing before. This is a book that's being, you know, that's being turned into a film in a really cool way. It also felt very timely. Like, this is one of the few Netflix things that felt very like, I have to see this right now, or someone will tell me about you know.
Before the next... you knew the pace at which it's coming out. You're like, well, I need to watch it. I might as well watch this now.
So it felt like the conversation.
And slasher films are kind of digestible, don't you think? Like, many of them are garbage, but you could just about put on a slasher film as easily as you could like a martial arts movie, or you know what I mean? It's like you could kind of say, well, I know what the formula is. Let's see what this one is.
This felt like, you know, you always talk about Amblin-y. Something about the friends, man. The way that the friends were talking and getting along, and fuck you, and you know, all of it felt so good. I felt real. It felt the way that I felt when I was a teenager, trying to impress a girl, or trying to avoid getting my ass kicked. But you know, it felt really good. It just felt real and authentic, and it worked. And it was campy, but it felt like it was bringing you along on this, taking somebody's bones and just putting them into the ground and being like, I'm sorry. It's so funny to me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to desecrate your grave.
Yeah.
Just little things that teenagers would have done. You know, I loved it, man. It was fun as shit. And
that's good.
One of the deaths was so
undeservedly brutal. It's like it tells you this movie's not messing around, you know.
Yeah, it's
there's
like
one, and you know, if you've seen the movie, you know the one. There's really only the one.
Oh, I loved it. I can't wait for the next one, man. God, that was a fun movie.
I think the way that it was R-rated was interesting too, because it feels like a PG-13 movie. And then it has these moments. It's like they almost deliberately made it feel sort of like it was a nicer, gentler movie than it is.
Yeah.
And then it gets much like if it's got like an Amblin adventure kind of feel to it. I mean, I do think it actually feels very much like a Scream film. It almost feels like they were directly riffing on Scream.
Yeah.
Even the characters being kind of like slightly like there's one kind of stoner dude character who is like the most caricaturish character in the movie, and he comes in being that way, but he also has moments of, you know, there's moments later where his humanity is a little bit more defined and you do see him as a real character. But in the very early moments, you're wondering like, how much of a spoof is this almost of specifically Scream, even down to the mask that the killer's wearing. It feels like it's very much trying to make us think of that, but it goes in a different direction. It's not that meta direction. It's more, it's got this, I mean, the one thing I sensed, not having read the Fear Street books, but knowing about them and knowing the tone of them, I thought, oh, there must be names and elements and story details that are being piled into this story, because it does feel like it's a witch story, supernatural thing, sitting on top of a slasher idea. And those two ideas don't necessarily coexist that easily in your head, but the movie manages to do both things pretty, you know, it's a short enough. I mean, it moves fast. It's like, it's not asking you to sit there and take it too seriously, but like it manages to keep the sort of mystery of what's behind this going, while you also have the slasher movie rhythm of every so often someone is dead, you know? And I think that we've talked about that before with a certain kind of fun horror movie. A certain level of body count is just part of the rhythm of a movie. You know, you've got to have fight scenes in an action movie. You've got to have bodies in a slasher. I think particularly the opening scene of this movie was a really strong, like little, you know, slasher short film. Like it was just a nice version, and it ends with a moment that's a bit of a twist on what you might expect from this type of movie, because it seems like the killer's dead right away, but that's the beginning of the movie, so you know that can't be the end. So I don't know. I think, you know, it's a new mythology, and I too, Steve, as a horror fan, horror buff, like, you know, I enjoyed it enough to just be thinking like, what is this reveal going to be as they go back through time? Particularly, I think the 1978 like camp slasher movie that they're doing next time, that looks like a ton of fun, especially if it's made with the same aesthetic as what we just saw. So yeah, I'm expecting at least one unnecessarily brutal death in, in the second one too. So if that's what they're doing, but yeah, I think fun is the word I'm going to keep saying, maybe even about the next movie we mentioned too. These movies are, you know, they kind of carry you along. And I do think particularly with, well, I don't know. I think with both of them, they both seem like they would be fun to have seen them with an audience. You know, it'd be fun to have felt those little moments rippling through a crowd, even though Fear Street is Netflix, top to bottom. It too feels like it would work in a theater.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fun, man. And I guess the last film.
He's one of our guys, isn't he?
It feels strange. It feels strange to say this, but I have to say it because a lot of people don't know. This is a movie based on a video game.
I know, isn't that crazy?
And I had to say, off top, this is one of the best. It is. The best. I mean, look, there's Mortal Kombat that just came out in this. That's it. Like, this is the best video game movie I've seen this year, with the exception of Mortal Kombat in my life, maybe. Yeah, definitely in my life. Wow. It's a
So Werewolves Within is the name of the video game too, right?
Yeah, I mean, Werewolves Within by Ubisoft. And it's a whodunit sort of small town mystery. Werewolves involved. It's a crazy movie, man. What I really want to know is how you guys feel about this film overall. Because I have some feelings about it, but I don't know how to quite articulate it. What you guys think about Werewolves Within?
John, you go first.
Well, I mean, I don't think it lands everything it tries to do. I loved the tone and atmosphere of this. I love the central performance by Sam Richardson a lot. Thought he was great, particularly at carrying the kind of aw shucks charm of this character. He keeps trying to have these big heroic moments where he gives kind of a speech. And Sam Richardson gives it just the right sort of, do you know what I'm saying? He gives it just the right kind of lilt of a guy who thinks he's really putting this over. But even just the way this movie was lit, I like the way this was filmed. I love this kind of snowbound. They're inside, warm by the fire. It's orange inside. It's white outside. You know, I love this kind of the look and feel of this. I thought it did a pretty good job of sustaining a certain kind of peril for the characters up through a certain point. I feel like it's one of those movies where it maybe in the last 15, 20 minutes, it kind of shakes a little bit as far as what it's actually trying to do. And throughout there are little tonal things or moments where maybe a character is too broad, or a scene just a joke doesn't land as well as it could, and you feel it. But I felt like the general tone and pace, I think it reminded me of Krampus, in that the cast is just full of these great, funny character actors that can sell this material.
Yeah.
People that are normally in just like comedies, it's fun to see them show up and be like, okay, I get to kill someone, or I get to be killed, or, you know, so it is that horror comedy mix or thriller comedy mix, or whatever you'd want to say. You know, but it's got moments of shocking violence, and a couple that really did work for me, of like, wow, there's one scene in particular where I think like 3 characters, no, maybe only 2, go in such a quick succession that it's like even the characters in the movie are standing there going like, wow, that got crazy, you know. And again, Sam Richardson is perfect for that. The straight man to all of these like rednecks and you know, weirdos in this town.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was really fun. It really was only in, you know, when I checked to see how much longer was in the movie, that's always a sign, you know, when you're like, how much longer do I have? And I think that was about maybe 15 minutes before the end that I started to feel like, okay, when is this wrapping up? And then it does do a few more things, and I still had enjoyed a couple little beats, but you know, not perfect, but I think earlier I said fun. I think this is one that you know, definitely goes in the fun category for me.
Steve?
Yeah, I thought it was great. So we didn't really talk about it much in this podcast, but I also liked Josh Rubin, the director. He had a movie come out earlier. I guess it was in 2020 when it came out. 2020. Scare Me. I don't know. Did either of you see that?
No, I didn't see it.
It was at one of the festivals that we did last year. I didn't get to see it there, but I did see it once it came out on VOD. But it was like kind of, he's actually in that movie with what is her name? Aya Cash and Chris Redd. And it's basically those 3 actors, and it's basically just, you know, people in a house during a power.
I remember that movie now.
Yeah, I didn't stories. See it. Yeah. And I like that movie quite a bit, but I think this is an improvement. And I don't know, probably maybe because there's more of a budget, more like of a world being built. But I think, you know, the idea of like a cast of characters built up of like really funny people being able to do some things that aren't always just funny, but when they're funny, it's really funny. Like I thought some scenes in this movie were really funny. And Sam is becoming like a guy who the podcast is going to probably talk about on every episode, because you know he's been in so much recently, and I'm happy to see he's doing a lot more stuff coming up here. But you know, we talked about him when we mentioned the Tomorrow War, and he was also in MODOK, and I think he's got that new the Tim Robinson series on Netflix that just dropped. I think it's 2nd season. What is that called? I think you should leave. But yeah, he's everywhere, and I
he's
love
pitched
it.
himself as Beast for the MCU's new X-Men.
Right. Yeah,
I think that would be great. I mean, actually, he could play that character really well. But no, he's also like a great. Just if you hear him in an interview or something, he's just one of those people that like. He seems to be the guy that you think he is. You know, he's very funny, but he's very level-headed, but very quick in that way, and just delivers these little asides that are just
right.
He's one of those great line deliverers. You know, we saw him on Veep. He felt like such a discovery when he was on Veep, and then Detroiters, really cemented that impression. But he's, you know, every now and then one of those comedy actors just hits that spot where people start knowing they're like a pinch hitter. You know, like you can bring them in. Tomorrow War was his kind of stepping up to the plate as like we need someone to deliver wisecracks in this movie and make people enjoy it. You know, so. He probably has maybe one of the best scenes in Tomorrow War, which I think I've already seen like
memed all over Twitter, like the shit scene. And like Aaron and I were dying in that scene. So like that's what you would say. Yeah. That is what would happen.
Yeah.
And it goes on just long enough. But yeah, in this one, I think he's great in this movie. Milana is also great as like I guess one of the female leads in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. This is like the kind of same thing. Like it's kind of this horror comedy. It's kind of like a, I don't know, Clue meets like a Fargo-ish kind of like a werewolf thing going down. Like I just love that idea of a balance of horror and comedy. And like I said before, I think when it's funny, some of it is like really funny. The cast of characters that kind of are introduced through the town and that we kind of get to meet as he's meeting them as the new park ranger in town is really kind of a nice way of kind of spreading out these introductions, like he's kind of learning more about the town as he learns more about the people of the town and the central conflict of what's kind of pitted some of these townsfolk against one another, which is basically like the installation of this gas pipeline that's going to go into town or not go into town or through the town. So it's just a really interesting way of kind of building this tension among a town and among different types of people, classes of people, and then introduce the possibility of there being a werewolf. It's just like a nice monkey wrench to throw into an already tense situation that just makes people turn on one another so quickly. The moment
what was the other werewolf movie that we saw recently that was almost a similar vein? What was that called?
Yes,
it was really good.
Snow Hollow. What was it called? The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Jim Cummings movie. Yeah, that was also really good.
But a similar thing of like taking human stuff and letting the horror be. This is more full. This will satisfy you more if you're looking for the thriller, horror, gore elements than that movie would. But they both have like a character study with horror elements, but it's with murders in this snowy backdrop, and they both have that thing of like, for a comedy, the scare scenes get pretty brutal or very close to what might happen in a horror film. You were talking about him saying shit in Tomorrow War. There's a moment in this where he says, "What?" That was just like such a great, what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it made me think that had to have been a Sam Richardson kind of invention of like what to do in this moment of like, how would this guy react to all this that has just happened? And he's but again, it's as you said, it's that human moment of like, that's really maybe what you would be processing what had just happened if you were him at that moment. So it would be, believable and very funny in that sense to do that. So yeah, Ronald, what you said you had thoughts or misgivings or things to say? Like,
I really liked it. I thought it was a fun movie. The only thing is when the comedic stuff didn't hit, it really didn't hit. It was like really, really bad, which was crazy that the swings felt so big. But I think that's kind of the chance that you take in a film like this. Like it's absurd. Like you're dealing with a pipeline and a werewolf and all sorts of elements of crazy. So, that's the only thing that bothered me a little bit. But because when it didn't hit, I was just like, is this taking me out of the film? And then it got me back pretty quickly after that. But there might be something about people in a town that think they're funny too. So that's another thing. I didn't consider until just now is the idea that like some of those people were intentionally trying to be funny in the scenes where I felt like they fell kind of flat. And I feel like maybe that would happen for someone that's just kind of like, I think this is really funny. And you're like, that's not funny at all. Especially when people are dying around us.
Right. You're weird.
Right. You're weird. So yeah, I thought it was solid, man. That's the only thing that bothered me. But yeah, I would suggest this to anybody looking for a fun movie that won't.
It's an easy watch.
It's an easy watch. I don't feel beat up after I watch a movie like this. I enjoyed it. Cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's I guess this really and Fear Street, like, they both kind of fall into this, just like pulling up a blanket and watching a horror movie kind of thing, especially probably Werewolves Within just because of the nature of like where it takes place. But yeah, they're so easily digestible and just kind of like a fun watch. One more for has comedic beats to it than the other. But I just they both kind of fall in that lane for the type of horror that's not really challenging. It's not really what do you call it? Like it requires a lot of engagement. I guess. Like some of the elevated horror may do, or to challenge the viewer, to kind of even stick with it. But yeah, like we've said about both these, they move so quickly, and the pacing's there, and the runtime is there that benefit that kind of viewing experience. And you're right, John. Like they're both movies that I would have really enjoyed seeing in the theater, for sure. But I mean, it was also nice to be able to be like, hey, literally, let's pull up a blanket and watch two really cool horror movies in one weekend, which I don't get to say too often, so I'll take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Fear Street 94 is on Netflix now. By the time this episode comes out, the second piece of this film series will be out on Netflix, which is Fear Street 1978, I think it is. It may be 76.
It's 78.
78, sure. Okay.
I think that's a nod to Halloween they made it 78.
Right. And then the Werewolf Within is on video on demand, which actually it came out early on that. Like I think they had a kind of like a surprise release for that because it was supposed to be delayed, but it's theatrical and video on demand. And I'm happy to see people posting about it because like even some random friends of mine have like found it, which is really cool. So hopefully more people can find that movie. And if you have Netflix, definitely recommend checking out Fear Street, catching up. Anything else you guys want to mention before we wrap up, or are we good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So again, next week, we'll kind of do our traditional Marvel Schmarvel episode, get back to kind of wrapping up the season finale of Loki. And we'll, finally get to talk about Black Widow. I mean, like, let's just say it. I've been feeling it all day here. We're recording this on a Thursday. I was talking to my coworker. I'm just like, hey, Black Widow comes out tomorrow. It's like, it's finally coming out. I'm very excited to see it. I can't wait to see it.
Now that it's here, try to see it. I'm starting to get those Marvel tingles again, like a little bit of that. There's something new.
Yeah. I want to try to see it in the theater. I mean, hopefully that works out for me. If not, I'm okay watching it at home. But it does feel like the I don't know, like the dam has broken or something. Like this Marvel MCU movie that we're all excited about is finally here. We get to watch it. I'm sure we're going to enjoy it to some extent, and then we can move on with the rest of the MCU. But it's exciting. It's exciting.
I'm going to watch all 8 trailers first, just to kind of get myself in the
catch up. Make sure you memorize the order that all 17 posters came out.
Yeah,
all 8 final trailers, I should say.
And then we'll talk about that next week on Marvel Schmarvel, not on Movie Schmovie. We'll figure something out for next week. Hopefully we can kind of check in on the new Fear Street movie, and then we'll see what next week brings. But thank you for listening. Movieschmovie.com is the website. You can find all the episodes there. You can also find links to all of the most popular podcast platforms out there if you'd rather subscribe to us on said platform, which would be awesome and really appreciative if you would do that from all 3 of us. And if you do subscribe to the podcast in any of those ways that allow you to leave a review or a star rating, or even share it with a friend, family member, or a foe, it doesn't matter. Just share it if you
Enemies.
can. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
We just want numbers. We don't care.
Just do it. It's all about like John said, it's numbers. But yeah, man, good talking to you guys, and we'll check in next week. And as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.